G'day everyone. You know, Casio makes some great timepieces that are usually feature-packed, reliable, and best of all, affordable. And while I do appreciate and respect G-Shocks, they are bulky pieces and a bit overkill, even in some of the tougher environments. But it was purely by accident, and after watching several reviews too many, that I found the best of all Casio worlds. Something rugged, something compact, and something incredibly functional. So let's get a move on and review the Casio AE1200, or as some call it, the Casio Royale. So here's a specs list of all the details, including physical dimensions, weight, water resistance, crystal, movement, and price. Now, as I said before, the greatest thing about this watch is that you're getting a bit of everything that makes Casios great. For starters, the square case dimensions make this a very compact watch but far from minuscule. The diameter is a bit larger owing to the presence of push buttons on each side, but you'll barely notice them due to the more overwhelming presence of the dial. And the shorter lug-to-lug measurements, along with the stubbier curved lugs, help to reduce the wrist presence and make it accessible for most wrist sizes. Combine this with a total weight that's well under 50 grams and you have a fairly comfortable watch that you'll almost forget that you're wearing. Admittedly, there is a bit of thickness to the case, but the watch as a whole sits well on the wrist so you won't notice it, and rest assured, it will still fit under a long sleeve. The case itself is made out of resin, and while it doesn't have the same tensile strength as stainless steel, it's still well built and sturdy feeling, and because it helps to contribute to the light weight of this watch, dropping it on a hard surface won't cause much damage to it or its inner workings. Adding to its toughness profile is 100 meters of water resistance, so you can happily go swimming with it and even get it dirty doing some more rough activities. And best of all, you won't need to compromise the water resistance on this watch much thanks to an advertised 10-year battery life, making caseback removal jobs very few and far between. Moving into the dial, and this is where things get very interesting. There's a lot going on here, but thanks to some clever layout choices, it's easy to check and locate the things you need with little difficulty. It's like everything is in its right place. At the bottom you have the main display showing the current time in digital format with hours, minute and seconds. Just above the minutes and seconds in the same display you have the current day, month and date. Above this main display on the right you have a world map that will highlight which time zone is currently on display. Using the search button in the bottom right hand corner allows you to change between designated time zones, and the map highlight changes as appropriate. Just above this you have a smaller display indicating mute if you don't want to hear beeps when operating the buttons, alarm if you've set one, and sig to indicate that a beep will sound at every hour. And to the left you've got a digital display of an analog dial that will always show your primary designated time zone. This can help with tracking two time zones simultaneously on the dial without making any adjustments. You have two pushes on each side of the watch to control the functions and a dictionary of text littered across the dial and on the case to illustrate the Royale specifications and button functions. And speaking of functions, the quartz module in this piece packs in so much. I won't bore you with all the details of how to operate them all, but I'll leave a link to another video that demonstrates them in detail. But in a nutshell, you've got the ability to change the time between 4 different cities, and add or remove them from each designation, set up to 5 alarms, use a countdown timer to remind you when to take a pot off the stove, and a stopwatch to measure duration. Great for when you're trying to pour that elusive perfect brew. And thankfully, the learning curve to use these buttons and their functions is pretty short. I found that once you've used them about 2 to 3 times, it almost becomes second nature. The top right button activates the LED light. You need to get the angle right in order to view the display properly, but when you do that, an orange glow lights up the entirety of the screen and is very legible. I'm impressed. And unlike some G-Shocks, the buttons protrude just enough to make them easy to grip and push without being a huge distraction. The alarm sound is perfectly adequate. It won't wake your neighbours, let alone anyone sleeping in the next room, but it's easily heard next to the bedside table or on your wrist when you're out and about. And wrapping up the positives is the price. You can pick these up for as little as 55 Aussie dollars, and for that price you're getting a lot of reliability and functionality. The design of this watch is where I have mixed feelings, and I think they will be polarizing. From a positive perspective, it crams in a lot of clever features and tools that is anything but dull to look at. But from a negative viewpoint, it looks like something Inspector Gadget would wear or can be attained by collecting 10 vouchers on the back of a kid's cereal box. For me, I really dig it, but it's not something I'd wear at a formal event or if you need to make a first serious impression. The text they include on the dial and case also make it look a bit like a Scrabble board. To be fair, some of this is useful and relevant, such as the text against the pushes, but world time and illuminator seem rather needless. At least they're not overly distracting, and if you really don't like it, you can follow some DIY instructions to remove the worst of it. The case back is one of the few steel components on this watch, and it's a fairly simple affair with engraving detailing brand name, model number, and other make specifications. Useful, but not breathtaking. The crystal is acrylic, and the sad news is that this will scratch even if you just look at it the wrong way. But one positive at least is that unlike mineral, you can invest in a tube of polywatch and buff out any minor scratches. And this is my segue to the negatives. The resin case on this watch is strong, but it's not G-Shock strong, so I wouldn't risk putting it through the same torture test like its bigger, rugged stablemates. And any punishment the case receives, minor or major, will become pretty obvious, so it'll lose a lot of its new watch gloss and charm very quickly. And if you haven't guessed yet, this is not the original strap that came with my Casio. The original broke several months ago, and while I will admit I've owned this watch for about 2 years, I only wore it on rotation and wasn't overly rough with it. So while the watch itself is pretty durable, the strap will get brittle and break quite easily. And remember when I said the Royale is fairly comfortable to wear and you'll almost forget you're wearing it? Well, the case itself is a treat on wrist, but the stock strap, and even the sell cheapo from AliExpress, have a very rough and plasticky feel, and once you start to sweat into it and feel it rub and chafe on your wrist, unfortunately that's the reminder of its presence. And thanks to that unique narrow lug shape, you won't be able to buy any regular 18mm strap to replace it. But at least AliExpress can help you out in a pinch, or if you want something nicer and don't mind paying extra coin, Vario has some nice leather offerings exclusively for the Royale. But even so, if the stock strap fails or you find it super uncomfortable, your replacement choices are very limited. Yet despite the strap limitations and other minor grievances, this watch is an easy recommendation to make for almost anybody. For its low price, you're getting a household brand name watch with a reputable history that packs a lot of features into a compact, robust frame that is straightforward to operate. And while you probably won't be sporting at a black tie event, it'll be right at home in any environment calling for a casual, traveling, or even beater watch. If you still or have previously owned a Casio Royale, I'd be interested to hear thoughts and experiences with them. But that's it for now, and thanks for watching, eh?